welcome back for another episode of the CBSI Hot 10 show. Make sure you go over to comicbookinvest.com and check out the article where I may put a few extra tidbits and details that I don't cover here on the show tonight. But while you're here, make sure you let me know what you think in the comments down below, that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And if you want to see this week's list, don't worry, I got you covered. Just hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back.
Notable sales.
All right, first things first, let's get to our notable sales of the week. And this week we have two interesting ones, both over at DC. First, we have Supergirl and the Legion of Superheroes, this classic Adam Hughes cover, one of my personal favorites, but I know a lot of you like it as well. This is a 1 in 10 incentive from, back in the day, very popular incentive. Probably one of the most popular incentive variants out there when you think about it. But this week, a copy of this sold raw. And while graded sales have been up and down over the last few years, raw sold for $810 this week. And that's up from the last raw sale just last month for $650. We haven't seen anything this high in quite a while. I think the last high sale that I saw in the last 3 years was $909. I think one sold for last June. So it's been a year since we've hit numbers like this for a raw sale on this book. And like I said, it is definitely notable. I still love this cover. I'm glad I still have one in my collection. And it was just an interesting sale for the, that happened this week to see a raw copy of this move for the price that it did. Now, that wasn't the only interesting DC sale this week, as we saw another incentive variant. This one maybe not as popular, but definitely one of the harder to find variants of the last few years. This is Tim Drake Robin number 7. Not many of these in the census in a CGC 9.8, and not many in this have sold in a CGC 9.8. In fact, I can only find 2 sales over the last few years for this particular book. This Serge Acuna cover, 1 in 25 again. Tim Drake Robin number 7. All-time high this week as one sold for $500. That's right, $500 when this last sold back in 2023 for $425. Those are the only 298 sales I could find. This thing could sell for a couple $100 raw, so $500 is an all-time high for this particular book, and definitely something that I found interesting. Now, before we get to the Hot 10, I want to remind any of you out there who need supplies, save yourself 10% off using my code RENA10 over at BCW. Get your bags, your boards, your long boxes, your short boxes, CGC boxes, your top loaders, card pages, basically anything to keep your comics or collectibles safe. There's probably a product over at BCW that you can pick up, and you can save 10% off by using my code RENA10. So save yourself a few bucks. Help out the channel. What do you got to lose since you got to buy this kind of stuff anyway? And with that all said, let's get into the list at number 10.
Number 10.
We have a familiar book here at number 10, as we have the giant-sized Dark Phoenix book that came out just last week. This is the 1 in 50 Virgin version, the Ivan Talavera cover, which is still very nice. It's still a gorgeous cover. It is down. It is down a few spots from where it was, but not for any fault of its own. This book is still selling well. In fact, volumes have remained pretty consistent with another 20 or so sales. Prices are up a tiny bit. Granted, only up 6%, but up to $82 for this 1 in 50 with a high again of around $91. So again, it's nothing really its fault. It's still doing very well, but it's down here at the bottom because it is a repeat. And while it did go up a tiny bit, it didn't stand out like some of the other books we have coming up. But with that said, this is our number 10 book this week, and something to still keep an eye on if you can find it. I'm fine with my trade dress version personally, but if you want to go pay those premium, this is what you're looking at these days. Now, with that said, let's keep it rolling and see what we got next.
Number 9.
All right, coming up here, we actually have an error book. We don't see these all that often, but this week we actually have an error and a recall to get to. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's stick here at number 9 with Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion, number 1. This just came out last week, and it turns out, for the cover A's, it seems like there's an error inside of this where there's some text missing. So this is the Sarah Pacelli cover, the cover A for this Incursion book. And, error books are sort of a niche collectible. Once they happen, there's a lot of FOMO and there's a lot of rush to get them. But will this interest maintain over time? that remains to be seen. It doesn't happen very often, though. And as you can see here, this is what we're talking about. Some of the text box inside here were blank due to a production error. They just didn't run. It looks like some of the blacks just didn't get completed here. So they didn't get that final pressing on this printing. So there's text missing. So that's the error we're looking at here. With that said, prices on this thing have started to go up because people, again, like buying these weird little collectibles. Only about a dozen or so sold so far this past week, but they're averaging $24. For again, this is a brand new book that just came out last week with a $6 cover, averaging $24 with a high of $40 already. I would personally advise against taking it a bit easy with these error books because, again, often they don't maintain that kind of value you might expect. But hey, if you want to take a shot, you like collecting these things, I'm not going to judge you. It's your money. You do what you like with it. But that's our first book here at number 9. I also mentioned that we do have a recall to deal with. So let's see what we got here at number 8.
Number 8.
And at number 8, we do have our recall book of the week. And this is a new release this week. This is They Choose Violence out of AWA. Interesting series. I kind of like this cover too. There are 2 cover options on this book, but everything seems to point towards the cover A, even though I think both were recalled by AWA due to, again, a printer error. I believe they double printed page 5 or something inside this book. I didn't get one of these to see what the printer error was. Again, it was recalled. So in theory, these shouldn't have been on shelves. These should have been pulled. But as you know, these things happen. Things start to get sold even with the recall. So this is the Raza cover here. We're spotlighting, but both the cover A and cover B were recalled, I believe, by the publisher due to that double page printing. But with that said, we still saw a couple dozen sales of this thing. It's only averaging about $11, but that's because the early copies that sold were only in that cover price kind of range of $4 to $5, and then they kind of took off, starting reaching highs of $20 to $25 as the release date and that recall became more and more aware. So with that said, who knows how this is going to go going forward, if the copies will still be on your shelves out there, or if the shop did properly recall them and pull them aside. Who knows? We'll see what happens in the week ahead on this particular book, but it's interesting to find that we had an error and a recall this week making the list. With that said, let's keep it rolling and see what we got at lucky number 7.
Number 7.
And at number 7, we actually have a Star Wars book, of all things. It's been a while since we've talked Star Wars comics. Yes, the restart of the, I shouldn't say restart, the continuation of the Marvel series, 10 years in now. We've passed the original trilogy. We're starting to get into some new content. And with that, we have the start of a brand new Star Wars Dr. Aphra series. Yes, one of the favorite creations of this Marvel run, I would say, by many, if not most, Star Wars fans. She is a fan favorite, and she now has a new series. And with that new series, we have a new number 1 and a new incentive variant that folks really like. This is the 1 in 25 incentive by Sarah Pichelli. It does have vibes of that Catwoman, mugshot, that Hughes cover from back in the day. Catwoman was a 51. Reminds me of that. I dig it. I like it. Yes, there is a virgin version of this in the 1 in 100, but we're not talking about that one. We're talking about the 1 in 25 right now. And with that, it's doing all right. With a little over 15 sold so far. We're only 2 days into the week with this being released on Wednesday, but it's averaging $50 already. Yes, there were some early pre-sales that kind of set the mark for this book, starting on an upward trend before release, but still, as the week went on, it's still averaging 50 for this 1 in 25, with a high hitting 65, which I believe was actually set before release date. So one of those pre-sales this week was for $65. But that said, it's still pretty much held at this double ratio kind of price point. So with that, we'll see where it goes from here. There is a Virgin 1 in 100 as well. That one didn't make the list here, but maybe we'll see this on the outside looking in or something else like that to talk about a little bit later today. With that said, this is our number 7 book, so let's keep it going and finish off the first half of the list at number 6.
Number 6.
And at number 6, we have another Mr. Miracle book. This is issue 4 of that original Kirby run. This is the introduction of Big Barda. Yes, with last week's late coming news about the Tom King animated series, where he's going to serve as executive producer as well. Interest started to drive some of these books up. That interest started to spread to other characters that are going to be main players in that storyline, that being his wife and mother of their child. This is Big Barda's first. So not surprised to see this finally getting a little bit of traction here as that news hit. Granted, we still got some time before the series will hit screens. We get casting news and things like that. But for now, people are going back and looking for this big Barda first. And it's been a while since the New Gods seem to be as popular as they are right now. I mean, we got a series coming to HBO Max. We got a current run by Ram V that's doing all right on the comic market. Who knows? New Gods. They keep getting a consistent push from DC, so I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. But with that said, this Mr. Miracle 4, again, Kirby, Big Barda first appearance from last week, where there was, basically not much, the news kind of just dropped. We're looking at about 20 sold this past week, an increase of 133%. So that's a big jump in volume over last week, with Raws hitting about $64 thereabouts, a high Raw sale at $130, which is a 53% jump from last week's high. And then the biggest sale of the week was a CGC 9.4 that got $429. So interesting numbers there on Big Barda. See what you can dig. This sells in all grades. So low grade sell, graded copy sell. If you get those CGC copies or raw, basically all copies of this will sell. Maybe not in the volumes of some of the newer releases, but it does move pretty consistently. And with that said, this is our bottom half of the list. So let's see what we have in the top half of the list, starting here at number 5.
Number 5.
And at number 5, we have another incentive variant for this week's new releases. And this is the Greg Land 1 in 25 for Emma Frost, the White Queen #1. Yes, Emma's got a new series now. She's got a new #1. Here's an incentive by Greg Land. It's a negative space cover. It does catch the eye. That bright white, it pops. It is what it is. Greg Land has his fans, and this book is moving in decent volumes, albeit the price is only just a hair over ratio. The volumes are there with over 35 sales already, averaging about $30. I think a lot of that might have to do with some exclusive variants for the White Queen out there. So a little bit, more incentives on the market for people to buy, keeping that price point down a little bit there at about $30. As highs also only hit $40 so far. So it's not quite hitting those Afro level numbers as far as prices go, but the volume is probably triple that. Is that just because there's more copies available? I don't know, but that is a pretty good indicator to me. So with that said, it's still moving in a decent volume. Its price is still going above ratio, so it is still performing well. We'll see how it does over the next week. But this is our number 5 book, and let's keep it rolling and see what we got next.
Number 4.
All right, moving up from last week, we do have the first appearance of Mr. Miracle. So we had Big Barda's first, now we have Scott Free's first. So we got Mr. Miracle here as well, moving up a few spots on the list this week with some more sales and some more volume. How much more sales and how much more volume? Well, another couple dozen sales is a 67% increase over last week. Raws are now up, averaging $88, which is a 35% jump, and a raw high hit $200 this week, which is significantly higher than any raws we had last week. Granted, the news just hit end of last week, so it's not a clear apples to apples comparison week over week, but still big jump in volume as well as prices here. So not surprised to see Mr. Miracle on his way up the list here at number 4. But with that, we still have the top 3 to get to, so let's see what they are.
Number 3.
At number 3, we have a special 1 per account, 1 per store thank you variant for Exquisite Corpses #2. Just like issue 1, this is a foil version of that cover A, given out to 1 per store, 1 per account, however we want to factor that in. But it is one of those special thank yous that retailers have gotten. And with that, it's commanding a price on the aftermarket as collectors want to be able to get a hold of one of these, as this is a pretty popular series. It's one of the best reads out there right now. I'm enjoying it by James Tynion. I always say his name incorrectly, but this Michael Walsh cover again with the foil. This is the thank you book. It's doing pretty much what the first one did so far. It's starting out of the gate, at a premium. We got 30 plus sales so far. It's averaging $47 with the high hitting $90 already. Now, I don't know if it's going to go for as high as that first one went. I think the first one started hitting 60 and 70 pretty quickly. We'll see. And we'll also see how long they intend to keep this up. I don't know if they're going to do every issue with a foil. Is it going to stop after a couple? We'll see. But for now, issue 2 did get that thank you. It did get that foil edition, and collectors still want it and are willing to pay a little bit extra for it. So with that in mind, we got 2 books left. Let's see what they are.
Number 2.
Okay, so to be fair, I struggled with this one because this is not a book. This is not a book per se. It's actually multiple books. This is a packet. If you didn't know what I'm talking about, this is that retailer packet that they were given not to be opened until 6/16, June 16th, 616, Marvel Universe. You get what they're going for there? But basically, for 616 Day, retailers were given this special packet that included a pin set, 4 exclusive variant covers, a little thank you note, etc. in this packet. Now, I struggle with how to count this one because how it is a collection of covers. They have been broken up. Some have been sold as packs, but it is something that has been moving both individually and in packs pretty well this week. So I couldn't ignore it, but I didn't know how to place it. So I didn't want to put it in that number 1 spot, but I will say it did do pretty well with over 100 sales for across the board on this thing. These are the 4 covers inside the packet, by the way. We've got 4 covers. We have a Greg Land Sue Storm cover, you got a X-Men cover, you got a Spidey, and we got an Avengers cover. So 4 titles, 4 variants, all unique to this packet. And like I said, it did pretty well with over 100 sales. We're counting everything for this packet. Well over 100 sales. We'll say sets have been selling for an average about $100. That's for the whole packet, opened or unopened, sold both ways. That's how it's been moving. High of 125. As far as the individual covers go, they're averaging right around that kind of $30 mark. But I will say the Sue Storm is doing better than the rest. While you can get some of the X-Men and maybe even the Spidey or Avengers for as low as $15, most have been selling in that kind of $20 to $30 range, with highs again of the Sue Storm hitting $40. Again, they're all given in like a packet together. Like all 4 books are packed together, and you only see 2 of the covers. You have to open it up to even see all of the covers. So they're not individually packed. They are put together in a single poly bag, if you will. And again, it's just an interesting item, if you will, or multiple items, multiple covers. Point being, as a whole, I put this in here at number 2 because it is doing well, and it is worth noting that it is outpacing a lot of the things on the market, whether we look at it individually or as a whole. But I didn't want the list to be dominated with multiple covers, kind of like the blind bags from a few weeks ago. So hopefully you don't mind me kind of packaging it all together as one spot. But with that spot taken and 1 spot left, let's see what we have here at the top.
And our number 1.
And our number 1 book of the week is another repeat from last week. Climbing up a few spots again is Mr. Miracle, as Mr. Miracle has been dominating sales this week. I mean, in a slower market, yes, conventions are rolling ahead, but with little news coming out, no real movies. Movies on the horizon, but nothing like in the theaters right now that's really driving a lot of sales, unless you want to count, some of the kid stuff, the more kid fare. But Mr. Miracle, as far as comics goes, has been selling very, very well. And again, animated series coming to HBO Max on the adult side of things. Executive produced by the writer of this series, Tom King. So we can imagine that Tom King is going to adapt this run in some fashion, if not in total, probably very heavily influenced by it. With that said, volumes and prices are up for this book this week, continuing on from last week's appearance on the list. So we had over 50 sold, which is 100% increase from last week. Averages are up to $23, which is another jump of 28%. Highs hitting $45 now for issue 1, which is a 60% jump over last week. And a CGC 9.8, they're back up to 150, whereas where I think they were at one time. Last week we had an $80 9.8, now $150 9.8, which is why it's up 88%. Meanwhile, sets are still selling for anywhere from like $30 up to like $80, $85 for all 12 issues of this maxi series. So all of those things in concert together, this thing is selling very well as people are getting excited for this upcoming animated series. I'm personally excited. I had hoped for something more on the adult side, akin to the Harley Quinn or the Kite Man Hell Yeah series. Now, I don't expect that kind of silliness per se, but I would be interested to have a little bit of humor as well as the more of that adult angle coming out of this. And again, executive produced by the writer of this run. It's a good bet that this is the run that they're going to follow. But at the same time, you see how the first appearances of characters related to this are also doing well. So keep an eye on some of those other New Gods books out there, as they might see an upswing as well as we get closer and more news related to this project. But with that all said, that was our list for today. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you found that interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Normally, I would tell you to stick around for the qualified next, but the boys need some time off. We got some holidays and vacations coming up, so they're on vacation. They'll be back in a couple of weeks, but for now, just stick around and check out all the other content I have in here on the channel. I got plenty of other new shows and other shows I want to bring back, so check those out. I just did a last to know for yesterday. Try to get a dollar bin digging in this weekend for you guys, as well as, again, starting up some of those older shows with newer installments of trade secrets and bringing back sneaky keys, etc. So hopefully you're on board for that. Let me know again what you think down below. Thanks for all the support, and I'll see you all later with some more content. All right.